I wanna be the best in the game, invest in my name. Check no restraints, I'm obsessed with the pain. I ingest, I retain, assess and I change. Possessed by the thought I'll be free one day from society's restraints. Money, clout and fame, mud, disease, a plague. We all love to hate, have to play the game, have to make a name. All our insecurities are on display. This is war with the enemy. Think that it was meant to be. Living in a time where disease is on every screen.
Hello and welcome again, listeners, to another episode of Tactical Awareness. It's it. We made it. Double digits. Episode 10. And we are here with another faction guide for Haqqislam, this time with the sectorial for Qapu Khalqi. Now, this is the, as Owen put it last episode, Haqqislam 4 Faction Edition, where you've got a mix of things like, nomads and mercenaries and all kinds of other fun stuff blended together with some new units we didn't talk about previously in a more balanced, mixed sort of like hard hitters and light stuff faction. So let's take a look, jump in, and see how everybody's doing with Qapu Khalqi. Okay, here we go. Round 2 of Haqqislam. We are now jumping forward from Rama Task Force last week into talking about Qapu Khalqi. And once again, I'm joined by Owen and Dan. Owen's going to take the lead again on Haqqislam, as it's the faction he's working on right now in season 14. And this is episode 10. We're in double digits. We made it. Yeah, we made it. I can't believe we actually stuck around this long. People are actually listening to us for 10 whole episodes. It's technically the 11th if you count our episode 0, where we just talked about a bunch of BS and imagined we were going to do this and did our proof of concept. But this is the 10th actually planned episode, which is kind of cool. It's
only because you forced me to be here.
I know. If I give enough people free managers, eventually we make a podcast. That's just how it works. I can will most things into being. It's more, can I get up and pass my alarm so that I can actually get up and record these things with you guys, because it's only 8 o'clock where you are and it's 10:20 where I am. So let's do a quick recap of the week, starting with what the sort of general comments were in reception to our talk about Rama Task Force. We had our first episode on Haqqislam last week, and it was a big long one, which is going to save a bunch of time on these next few. So obviously, if you haven't listened to the Rama Task Force episode, it's going to cover a lot of the profiles that we're going to not spend a whole lot of time on this episode. And there was a few hot takes. We were just talking about one of them, which is Rouhani. People were, it's kind of taking our take on it as being a little bit negative. And I want to remind everybody, we're talking about all these profiles, not necessarily on an individual, mechanical basis of how good are they individually, but where they sit on the spectrum of all the profiles in a sectorial. So especially on a sectorial, remember, profiles are competing with each other. And it's not so much that Rouhani is bad, it's that he sits in between the point cost values of the very cheap Ghulam doctor who does the same doctoring job, and the slightly more expensive but infinitely more fighty and durable doctors that are the heavy infantry and medium infantry caliber. We're also Doctor +3.
And I think the other standout doctor that isn't, I don't know if we touched on it enough because it was right at the end, but it's the Toreg. Toreg has a doctor profile that's also Doctor +3, but gets the infiltration, hidden deployment, and all of the fixins there with Whip 15.
Yep.
You're more expensive, of course, but MIM 6 is real good.
Oh, yeah. If you're talking about surviving to get there, and also doing midfield jobs of button pushing and doing your classifieds and stuff too.
And terrain total in this current season.
Means jump around.
And mines. And a shotgun.
Mines. Yep. Jump
and
up,
a
jump
rifle.
up and get down. So I think that's the important thing to remember in all these profile discussions is we're talking about things like where they sit amongst the unique list of that particular sectorial in this case, right? So the other one was Janissaries, and Janissaries being mechanically powerful bricks, and some people felt like we kind of bagged on them a little bit too much. What was your sort of logic behind that, Owen?
Why I would not use Janissaries?
Yeah, particularly in Rama. Why do you feel Janissaries weren't your pick, or why were you talking kind of negatively about them maybe in the last episode?
I mean, one, I find them in a faction that has walls of special rules of all of these super soldiers, they're pretty bland. And then even the role that you can do with a Janissary, so things like the HMG or a missile launcher, other parts of this faction do the same job, or for the same points they can do it plus. the Zaydans can link just like the Janissaries can. And while the Janissaries have BS14, the Zaydans have marksmanship built in. And so they're effectively BS15 because they're going to ignore that cover mod every time. And while it's true they have less armor and wounds, if you don't lose, like, doesn't matter.
Yeah. Doesn't matter if you're one wound or none.
And then the other idea of like, if you're using these as like scalpel units to remove things because I'm an HMG and I can fight from these range bands that I'm effective at that they're not. But I mean, once again, the Zaydans stand up and go, I can do that job too. But then there's also just a collection of like off-brand versions that can solve those problems in ways that aren't the HMG stands up in my deployment zone at bad range for you, where you get things like the Namurs or the Kawari, and I even referenced in the previous one, the Nahabs, where they can come from lefts and rights and backs and fronts that you don't necessarily have the counter to deal with. And then they are I can fight anyone kind of profile. They're going to die, but they have no wounding cap. So there's pseudo 2 wound models because they have shock immune and crit immune. Their BS goes down, but they gain all the martial arts and melee and infiltration. And like, you can bring a Red Fury infiltrator. That guy is going to be a good range bands with whatever he goes up against.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing is, I mean, we're talking about HMGs. There are some kind of like kind of broader spectrum things to think about too, like between that Zayd and that Janissary, where the Janissary is like mechanically stat driven. You know what I mean? Like his raw like numbers on his profile are higher than the Zaydans. So he's got like a BS of 14 versus a 12, but that marksmanship is effectively making the Zaydan BS 15 because you're usually shooting targets in cover. And you're also typically, because you're cheaper, you're going to be having him in a big composition bonus to fire team, right? So his ceiling's a bit higher, I guess, when you build that list and you have like the cheap folks to follow him around. Whereas if you want to build that same ceiling for the Janissary, he's got to hang out with Janissaries. And that's, and all of a sudden you're putting 200 points together. You're building like a military order link almost in Haqqislam.
Like you're trading, like, especially in the current meta of hackers everywhere, the Zaydan dodging all of those shenanigans, I think, is a value that's not obvious on the face of it. Like the fact that they're veterans, so they can't be isolated, which is a huge number of equipment that people have now, and they are not heavy infantry, so they're not playing the carbonite isolate. Yeah. Like that they don't interact with that mechanic at all. You can't counter them by shooting a picture next to them and then turning their armor off.
Yeah, you just target them basically, and that's it.
Yeah, the best you can get is a spotlight, and they're whip 14 just like the Janissaries are.
Yeah, I think it's subtler than, and I think that's the important thing for me to remember is it's the differences we're talking about here are pretty subtle, and we're still acknowledging like that the stat driven power of that model is there. It's when you're talking about a list of like knife fighting gunfighters, which is kind of where the Rama task force sits, unless you get in like the armored fire teams or like the double Maggie list. This guy's like an axe thrower, right? As opposed to being like a more close range knife fighter or one of these like midpoint value, like, you know, low to mid 30s brawler type gunfighters like the Mukhtars and the Mars.
Yeah. So I mean that's kind of my perspective on it. It's that the role that Janissaries would serve in another faction of being like a long range multi-wound armored hitting piece, you can fulfill versions of that for cheaper. And then if you really want to run that armored brick, well, I mean, you still have access to it. So like, go for it. I'm not going to stop you. I just not that to me doesn't speak to what this sub faction is specifically doing. Like they have all of these super soldiers with all these wacky abilities and all of these like non-direct ways of dealing with people, as in like there's forward deployment, there's infiltrators, there's people who walk in from the side, you've got climbing plus total immunity,
super like, mixed fire teams. They have like an almost Morat level like line troop like fire team.
Yeah, you're all over the place in what you're capable of doing. I mean, sure, yeah, bring just I bring just 2 Magariba guards. Like I get it. But just play one of the other groups, like or I don't know. That's for me. That's where I
think it's the important part is that's for you, right? Like we're giving our takes on this stuff, and so other things are going to work better for other people. But I think what we're trying to do in the faction guides is give sort of like a broad, like,
if nothing else, Janissaries have great models.
They do have great models. Yeah. I think we're trying to give here is like, what's the flavor? And do these guys fit the flavor maybe of where this faction is leading and what it's leaning into?
Look, if we're right, you're wrong. Just move on, okay?
With absolutely no evidence.
Yep.
And now we voted, and so all three of us agree. And that's 150%, which means it works all the time.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So that's our recap of Rama Task Force, and we're on to QK this week. But quick, like 30-second pitch. What have you guys been doing this week for Infinity?
Not much. I've been crazy modifying my lists and panicking of like, oh, this is the way I like to play it. But like, oh, what about all these side deployers or these ninjas that go into my deployment and these other what am I? Oh, and so I've been like trying to figure out this crazy, widely different lists that I've never played before, and I probably should practice before playing in a tournament. But it's mostly just in theory. I wasn't able to play any games. But
well, you guys are what? You guys are 9 days away from Colder Than Carbonite, a satellite tournament with like 40 people playing. So you should probably have an army list sometime soon. You should probably play at least one game with the army list.
Nah, that's not my style.
What about you, Anna? Have you gotten your practice games in yet? Have you list locked? Have you decided on your faction?
I think I've decided on my faction. I've decided on one list, and I played it this weekend twice to try it out. And it was, I don't know, it's hard to say whether it was a good representation of how things went, because we've talked about before how I don't like using like, oh, it was just dice and it went weird. But both of my games had really like there were distinct moments where things that would likely have happened should have happened and just just didn't. One example is I missed 9 consecutive Panzerfaust shots. Not like he beat me in the roll. I mean, I failed to roll a 14 or less 11 times or 9 times consecutive.
It was bad enough that I got like rapid fire texts.
It. And then and like one major one is, we've talked about the Sunduck butt and his BS13, and he's neurocinetic and whatnot. He lost against a dog face throwing smoke to dodge against him 3 times in a row. The dog just walks up, gets shot 4 times on 16s. Sunduck butt just misses or doesn't beat him, and he throws his smoke down. And now it's fair. They throw on like 19s.
Yeah.
And once again, these are the hard counters to dogs. Like quadruple upgraded damage vial rifle is the dog's worst nightmare, but it doesn't mean anything if he just passes his saves. And then the dog walks out chain rifles. I fail all my armor saves. It's like, oh, okay.
Good night, Sunday.
Yeah.
Any given Sunday. This was that night.
In the same game where the Fide double tap shotguns an HMG at short range, and he pulls out his pistol and just kills the Fide. And you're like, okay. How about other Fide? Oh no, you got killed by Wallace point blank too. Okay.
He's got FPFs dugged. He just does nothing but headshots.
And I mean, the other thing though is that in the end I was able to claw out a win. And so on one side it's like nothing I wanted worked, but in the end it didn't matter.
You played your outs. Yeah, you managed to like just keep to the mission and not worry about the bad dice.
Yeah. Well, where at the very end he had his bad dice moment where he didn't shoot the guy who was like, I'm going for the button. And then he made it to the button and didn't die.
It sounds like you had a week of tilt training where you managed to not tilt and get yourself through to the end of a game where it's very easy to throw your hands up. I think that's the worst, right? Because you especially in a tournament, if you get one of those bad dice things, you can just immediately like mentally commit to it being all over, and you have to like settle the boat. So it's probably good to have those games in advance. Just like sage your house or something, man. Hire a priest to exercise whatever bad juju you got going on.
The other one is Fide on rooftop against a group of moderators, and they're just like, we just dodge shotguns. That doesn't hit us. Sorry. Did you think you could kill my lieutenant? No, he dodges on a 10. I passed.
Brought their anti-shotgun pants.
Yeah, they brought those. Oh, sorry, I got hit. I passed my armor save.
20.
I'll get over that. 10 orders later, we got through 4 of those moderators.
Oh, jeez.
Who was that, and how could I steal his dice?
Right.
Well, so for my side, I played a game against Jordan with my Corregidor on Sunday. He brought his Varuna, and I got to try out like a light version of Maggie, because the Gator has Mine Layer. not mine layer, a mine dispenser. And I sat him deployment. Basically, there's a nice sort of like cluster of buildings in the central forward of my deployment zone. I'm playing Capture and Protect, which is the football one. You both got a football. You're round scoring it, and then if you're holding it at the end of the game, you can get stuff too. And Gator don't play. Gator walked up out of the deployment zone, stayed inside the zone of control of the Salyut that was sleeping on top of the building, like middle of the front of the table, and proceeded to like just spec fire under McMurrow's like smoke cloud grenades or mines everywhere that there was like a link team, and then slice the pie around them and get into gunfights with like a Fearblock Orc, where I should have actually had the mines going off on the Fusiliers, but I didn't because I was an idiot. And he made all of his Orc armor saves, so it didn't actually work very well. But Jordan was just like, his brain was, he's like, this is bullshit. Like this is not fun to play against. And I was like, well, you can be doing this all the time with your Maghreb Guard. He's like, I get it. I didn't see this part where like you use these mines in your advance to lay them out before you slice the pie, and then they've got to either dodge the mine or eat the multi-HMG at the same time. And then the Salyut was in group 2, right? So it just had 5 orders to like rack the shotgun every time the Gator emptied his mine dispenser. So it was just like Gator drops mines, goes out, gunfights, then it's like and the Salyut just like puts them all back in, rinse, repeat. And being able to drop those mines spec fire in 11s if you're within 16, right, is a huge it's a huge deal. So I got to do like a version of what Owen's been doing with the double Maggies with the Gator. It was pretty great. I will not lie. It felt slightly abusive. I'll do it again. It was real nice. I ended up in a fight with a Squall though and lost my Gator like turn 2. So I didn't get to do it too far, but like it was one of those times where like you had a plan on what you're gonna do and it worked perfectly, and then you just didn't know what to do afterwards because you're like, wait, the thing I was planning on doing worked? Like, that's not how Infinity usually happens. Like, what the hell?
Happens.
Yeah. And then he had a good turn. He rallied his Squall, killed my Gator. He like sneaky killed McMurdo with Richard Quinn. I didn't see a fire angle as I like zoomed by, and I got double tap filled both my saves. And then he wisely shot him because my paramedic would have just leaned out and tapped, double tapped some medkits into his back, make him stand back up. And I think we ended up 3-1 in that mission because I got secure HVT at the end, and neither of us had each other's football at the end for Capture and Protect. It was a really close game. It was a good game, but I managed to secure the HVT when it was all said and done. So yeah, it was my week. I built some buildings and stuff. Most of my hobby was I think I painted Merkmar last week, and I finished off the Hlock cardboard set of Infinity Terrain, the new one, the upgrade set, and I did the building as like the tall building, which looks really cool. So I'm going to try and do another table with Infinity stuff before Spring Offensive. So I've like got one more in the bins, and then I can leave all the other stuff packed up and just have one to play with in the studio when I'm playing games with Jordan and stuff. All right, who's ready for some QK?
I prefer to call him QK.
QK? So who are QK? Before we get started in the profiles and stuff on, who are these guys? What is their shtick? What's their background? Because the Super Soldiers were the Rama Task Force. Who's QK?
These guys were the original like mercenary group. They were the security for the spice trade. They're the
Silk Road.
The Silk Road.
They use this commodity that you guys make called silk that allows for like all the posthumans and stuff to get built.
And these guys were the space piratey hired to be security group. And so you had a whole mix of different factions put together in a time before even other factions started to do that, like prior to everything that exists in NA2 now, where they are built out of these mixes of different units from different factions. This group did it first, essentially.
Yeah, and they had like their hack minders basically, who are that made up the rest of the faction.
Yeah, I don't know if it's still the case, but it used to be the case that none of the people who weren't Haqqislam could be lieutenants.
No, it's not anymore. That Aguasil can be a lieutenant.
The Brigada.
The Brigada is really popular. Yeah, he's really popular as being a lieutenant because he's like nice and robust.
Maybe the Brigada could be 4, but it was something like that. It was the idea that like Haqqislam is running the show, but they've brought a whole bunch of specialists on board to kind of deal with this.
Yeah.
where you get things like the Druze and the Caplans, and then obviously a bunch of people from the Nomads. But that's my understanding of it, having never read any lore and acquired this through osmosis.
Over 10 years. They do get a tag too, actually, from the Nomads. They get the iguana, arguably the worst tag in the game.
It's funny that it's arguable. Because Sundog, or sorry, what's his name? Shakush exists.
No, this guy's arguably worse. He turns into a heavy infantry when it's over, which is weird. Like, he's a tag that transforms into heavy infantry because he has an escape system, right? So he's only got 2 structure, where most tags have 3 structure.
That's true. That's true. An armor 6 with size 7. Also not great. But we'll get to him. We'll get to him. Yeah, so that's my understanding of this faction. I figure we'll go in it, we'll break down the profiles again. We're going to gloss over any of the ones that came up in the previous sets because the rules for them kind of apply here as well. Like, they fulfill the same niches, things like the Ghulam infantry or the beast hunters.
We can comment kind of on their mix, though, right? Like, there is a lot more midfield and peace treaty stuff in this list than there was in Rama.
Yeah, especially when it's like when we're bringing it all together at the end, sort of thing. But yeah, so I guess just to jump right into it, going from the light infantry, alphabetized, you have the first of the army of mercenary troops, which is the Bashri Bazook, which honestly everyone has now had, at least if you've played any games in this current season, because these are they call them something else.
Corsairs.
Like Corsairs.
Yeah. Space pirates.
This is where they live. This is their home base, is in a Haqqislam Qapu Khalqi list. They are the exact same hollow mask, hollow projector. All the profiles are the same as the ITS one that you're familiar with. They're dirt cheap, flanking, surprise attacking, pick your weapon Haqqislam models.
Hollow mask, hollow projector. So they can choose to be both.
Yep. They could be anything walking.
And they're armed too. They're actually fairly heavily armored. They're only BS11, but they're pretty tough for being, 12 to 15 points.
And one of the only weird things about them, in my opinion, is that they basically traded their willpower for that armor. They are a weirdly low whip Haqqislam unit. I bet you they're the lowest.
They are,
aside
for
from
sure.
like even actually including the robots, because I'm pretty sure the robots
they're all 13. Yeah, the robots are all base 13.
These guys are probably the lowest Haqqislam willpower unit.
Yeah. There's a couple really cool profiles in here. I think my favorite, which is when I take the Corsairs, the rifle light shotgun EM mines. Because being able to drop EM mines around your opponent's deployment zone with parachutist is wild. And then having a hollow projector, they're great for clearing mines themselves. They show up in the flank and they just send the hollow echoes in to detonate all the mines and boost weapons.
I am a fan of AP rifle breaker pistol +1 burst. He's 1 point cheaper, but he can now like pick fights with things that he normally doesn't, like you wouldn't go after with that other equipment.
Mm-hmm.
And a triple tap breaker pistol, as he's going to be up close with surprise attack. A lot of HMGs don't want that to happen.
True.
But that's it. They're perfectly at like I said, they're dirt cheap infiltrator or parachutists.
Yeah, the cheap one you can piece trade with. It's got an SMG and a chain colt. It's actually kind of cool to walk on the side. You could chain colt to try and like trade up for your points, or you can just put on suppression because SMG actually is slightly better ranged at suppression because it's just keeps it 0 range. It just goes to -3 and it's
That's
AP.
it.
Yeah,
Walk
you can trap
up,
a tag
surprise
that way.
attack somebody,
Mhm.
hit him with the SMG on either shock or AP, and then suppress. Yep. They also have access. So next unit we have the Beast Hunter Free Guild. I think we talked about these guys.
Yeah,
in the previous one.
He's a great 9-point FTO, and then you can take the camo ones too. He's a great little piece trader.
Yeah.
Oh, that's one thing I did as a hobby thing this week is I amalgamated a few different models and then 3D printed some different weapons and changed them out. My own little Beast Hunter Free Guild.
Is he going to be in all your lists?
Probably.
Yeah, he's pretty awesome. Especially, I think for O12, he's actually really awesome.
Yeah. He gives you that 4 deployment and camo and mine layer or whatever you want.
Cool. After that, we go into the first like derailing it from Haqqislam models, and it's access to 4 Corregidor Alguaciles.
Alguaciles, yeah. It is weird to see them in here.
Yeah, I they are essentially 1 point cheaper Ghulams with 1 less whip. That's kind of what you get.
And no
then-
shotguns, remember, because they don't have the loadout that you guys have either. So it's combi rifles instead of rifle light shotguns.
Yeah, so they're
So
a
it's
little
just
bit
alternate line infantry.
Yep.
yes. Of which you can take 4 of. Who
You
can
get
win.
access to a cheap hacker. So you get access to a 15-point hacker, which is kind of nice. You get a missile launcher, which I don't know if the Ghulams get.
They get every single one of these profiles.
Oh, they do. Yeah, you're right.
And they're all exactly 1 point more.
Yeah.
Except for the missile launcher, who I think is 2 points more, but the sniper is 1 point cheaper because it's not a multi-sniper.
So you
I
get
think
access
the
to the
multi-sniper
rifle then.
is the odd one out.
Yeah.
Other than that, these are the same as Ghulams.
Yeah, no EM mines on the FO though. Like
Yep.
your FO is just objectively better.
And also a higher whip.
And you have a doctor
Right.
instead of a paramedic.
Yep. And the doctor's +3 instead of that. And the FO is the same cost. And the doctor, I think, is actually the same cost. No, the doctor is not. Paramedic's 12. The doctor is 15.
Yeah.
But he's also rifle light shotgun. So
There isn't really there's not really a very good reason to take these guys.
No.
The Gulam fire team can take up to 4 of them, but they don't have the Gulam keyword. So they break a composition bonus. Like if you really need to save a point, I guess.
like
you
you
could use these
really
guys.
need to save a point to the
Like
point where you're
they're-
gonna like disrupt your link or I don't know, you're throwing a random guy somewhere.
Yeah. And also your lieutenant costs a Swick in the Alguacils. Whereas the lieutenant for the Gulams costs nothing and can get a free command token for extra 5 points. Like
Yeah,
it's not
it's not great.
I mean,
it's not great.
It's not
great. And
Moving
you
on.
lose terrain desert, the
I know.
worst terrain ability.
Hey man, it might come up. They're working their way through in the ITSs. It'll have
fair.
its day, I promise.
That's
It'll
fair.
be a day we're on the desert planet. We're on Tatooine.
I'm gonna hold you to that.
So
It's on a
Alguacils-
list somewhere, I guarantee.
they exist. Moving on. We got Fiddler. Fiddler shows up again here. We talked about Fiddler before. Fiddler has 5 million potential jobs, and there's tons of janking fun stuff you can do with jackpots, as well as adding a Nazmat, which is your little robot, and you can go into melee. You can roll up with 2 shotgun bots. One gets right up close and says, I'm going to template. The other one says, I'm going to shoot you directly. And if you kill one of us, we're going to explode. That's great.
There's one thing that I will say about Fiddler in this faction is you don't get a Sundic butt in this faction, which feels weird, but her like engineering is less significant in this list than it was in Rama.
It is, but for Azra'il, who we'll get to.
Yeah. Well, you
Because
can't
he is
heal him. You can just unstick him or
unproblem him.
unproblem him if you need to. Yeah. There is a reason to do it because he is great and he's a great piece.
Yeah. So same things all apply. Same with the Gulam infantry. They have a competition in this one, being the Alguacils, but it's not
just they
good.
just win.
It's just not good competition.
I don't think
Yeah.
there's any real argument to taking the Alguacils over the Gulams.
And there used to be, because like back when this was first created, half of these Gulam profiles didn't exist. There was no NCO, this lieutenant +1 command token, number 2 deployable repeater, like the +3 doctor, like all that stuff has been added later. And I think it's been added into like Task Force really did this big update for the Gulam, and they've spread it across the rest of the factions. But it meant that the Alguacils just went like, but what is this?
The Alguacils are great in their home faction of Corregidor. They're not really great in
They have
any
to-
of the hack lists.
They have to compete with the objectively better line troopers, and they lose. That's it. Like you're talking a single point for better kit and stats.
The point giving you a light shotgun is it, and you have better whip. Like just having the
Yeah.
whip is huge.
The whip is huge just for your FO, hacker,
Mhm.
doctor, guy with template weapon. Oh wait, we all have template weapons.
Well, you can't intuitive attack with template weapons.
That's true. That's
Yeah,
true.
They don't have that. They're not chain rifles.
Yeah. Dot grenade launchers though.
True.
Not that you need your whip for those.
Mine's on the FO is the reason to take that Ghoulie FO. It's great.
Yes. And he's just like, and I put a mine down, and I put a repeater down, and I put a mine down. If you got orders, why not?
Well, he's not the FO, so he's the guy under the FO. He's the I've got lots of gear guy. He doesn't even have a skill.
Oh, yeah. I was mixing up the profiles.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, fair enough.
I mean, who cares? I'd still take him. I'd take the EM mine guy.
Yeah, he's great.
Mhm.
But now we get into like the meat and potatoes that makes QK different than the other parts of Haqqislam. It's the Hafsa unit. So Hafsas in this faction they're your everymans. They can join basically any link that you create of like any of the large scale links, and they count as whatever version you need them to count as. Do you want a Hafsa Jansa band? Do you want a Hafsa Janissary or Gulam or Sec band? They're all of them. And what's more, they come with Hollow Mask built in, and so they can pretend to be those at all times.
Yeah.
And they're dirt cheap. They're your Gulam prices for Gulam stat. Only for some reason they got armor 2 and BS12. And then they have access to all kinds of special weapons. Their forward observer gets the flashballs deployable repeater. They have lieutenant options, so they can be pretending to be something. Now their Spitfire costs a Swick. I don't know if I would bring Spitfire Lieutenant Hafsa, but
he's cool turn 3. Like he's really cool turn 3. Just Rambo him at turn 3. It doesn't matter anymore. You know what I mean? Just an extra order guy, the Spitfire.
I always think that their Hollow Mask makes them pretend to be upgunned. Like if you're hanging out with like Janissaries or Jambazan, he's like, I'm also you, but I'm the boarding shotgun. Don't come near me.
Yeah.
Like that's the idea. And then it's like, actually, I was a heavy rocket launcher. Surprise.
Mind games. Yeah, mind games. Why
Okay.
not? The heavy rocket launcher has an assault pistol too, which is crazy.
Oh, that's actually
and he's
sweet.
cheap. He's 17 points for a heavy rocket launcher, assault pistol, CC weapon.
1.5 Swick though.
Yeah, well,
That's what you pay for rockets usually,
Yeah.
or one.
but like a pocket heavy rocket launcher where your opponent doesn't know you have templates. The templates in your army? Not that you know about. And then all of a sudden, sham.
Yeah, this is my Gulam doctor with his rifle light shotgun. Actually, he's a heavy rocket launcher, which Gulams don't have access to. But he counts as a Gulam now, so surprise.
Or just a close in assault pistol too. Burst 5 assault pistol.
So for composition bonus, you could take them as a Hafsa, as with the Gulam tag on it.
Yep.
And bring it in a 5-man, but then you can make it like something else.
Yeah, he has Hollow Mask, so he'd deploy as any other model in your army that is eligible, and then usually you pick a model that's eligible to be in that fire team, so that you can just not lie about your composition bonuses because you have to tell them the truth about that.
But you could just
somebody
say,
in here
I
is
get a
alive.
composition bonus.
Yeah.
But he's alive, but what kind of lie is he?
That man is a Janissary. Yeah, but he's a Gulam. Don't worry about it.
It is actually a way to make the Janissary link look like an actual Janissary fire team, which I think is kind of funny, right?
Get ready for a
Janissaries
completely different perspective on Janissaries coming into this faction, by the way.
Definitely, yeah. Because you could take, well, that's it. Janissaries, I think, are actually kind of viable because you get 2 more bodies in that core fire team that are only costing you 30 points. Right. Yeah. So your top end, you've basically just knocked off 50 points from the fire team cost.
Yeah, and you can go further with it now, where I can see you making the case for a quote unquote 5-man Janissary link, because it's going to be like 100 points or just over, and that's way cheaper. And you can have your 1, 2, 3 frontline Janissary guys with 2 little Hafsas that are just also there.
Yeah, give it a composition bonus.
Or just getting to the Harris, which once again is dirt cheap. So like that Janissary HMG, he shines here way brighter than he does in Task Force because he doesn't have nearly the competition as we go through these guys. But yeah, that's Hafsas. Hafsas are such a like fundamental part of QK that, I mean, you really can't leave home without them.
You can do such trolly stuff too with Hafsas, where like you can have like your Hafsa pretend to be like a Janissary HMG and stick it on Overwatch and have someone go to gunfight it and kill it, and then just be like, wah, wah, you just killed the Hafsa. You know what I mean? Like, and the actual HMG is the other guy laying down. Like, you can play so many mind games with these guys. It's really neat. They're a lot of fun. But you only get 4 for the whole army, right? So you got to kind of decide where they're going to get peppered in.
You can pay 15 points, pretend to be a Kaplan multi-sniper rifle, put yourself standing in the very back corner of your board, and people will not want to fight that guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then they're gonna finally go, okay, I have to face him up. I'm gonna shoot him, and you're like, I'm a rifle, I duck. Like that's
dodge, or you're just DFO and you go flash pulse. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, and you do something silly like that. Like, yeah, absolutely. Or they pull the whole link around the corner because they think it's a sniper rifle and it's actually that heavy rocket launcher instead.
Exactly.
Splash the whole team.
Yeah, you can be whatever you pretend to be. You can also be bait. You can do things like, if there's obvious lieutenant choices, they can be lieutenants, or they can pretend to be other people who are lieutenants. Like they are one of those units that, like, the complexity is as far as your model collection goes, because that's what you're going to need to do, is just pretend that they're other things.
Yeah.
Moving on from there, we have Layla again. She's great.
Still great.
She's just Gulam +2. Like everything a Gulam does, she does. But she gains the range and gains the mine and gains the hacking and blah 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 blah. The only thing that she doesn't get against the other character people in here is the extra whip, but she gets a BS instead. She's a bit more of a fighter.
I think the only person giving her a run in this mission or in this faction is the Al Hawa, but they don't have a killer hacker profile, so she's still super useful because your only skirmisher is the Al Hawa, and so I think she still shines in this no matter what. I don't think there's a Haqqislam faction she's not great in. She's pretty ubiquitous.
No. And because she always works with the Gulams, and you're always going to take a Gulam group, whether it's a Harris or whether it's just a random group, you're always going to have it. And a shock marksman rifle is no joke.
Yeah.
Like BS12 shock marksman in a link. That's a little Spitfire, little Red Fury. Yeah. We're gonna skim past the ITS classes again, the Bashi Corsair
Sektet and the Bashi,
and the Sektet. We get to Rouhani again.
I think he's a bit better in this one. I'd take him in this one because you don't have access to all those like heavy infantry doctor +3s that you did in the other one. So having a no winding cap doctor in this one I think is interesting, and he's still a wild card.
It is true that a lot of the like weirdo profiles, like the Hakims and stuff, aren't here, which are the doctors that can get where they need to be.
I think the Sec Band's your only Doctor +3 that you get in this one. That's like he'd want to come along. Yeah, the Sec Band, and he's 28 points without that extra wound.
The Jampazans get it too, but they're playing a totally different game. So yeah, kind of a Sec Band. But yeah, there you go. That's who he's competing with, is them. And so it makes it a lot more viable, in my opinion, to bring him as well.
I think he shines in this sectorial in particular more than he did when there was just like a plethora of Doctor +3s that were all native to the fire teams they wanted to be in the other one,
and all around 20 something points. Like many of them crept towards 30, but they also crept towards 30 with a pile of other abilities.
They're all low 30s usually. I think the most expensive one was the Janissaries, was 38.
Yeah. Nigerian engineer. He's your engineer if you're not going to bring Fiddler. Because actually, that's not true here. There are other engineers because you have access to the Kaplans.
And Scarface and Cordelia.
So you have access to the Kaplans.
Moving on.
Yeah, he's fine. He's once again the cheap engineer option. You got to do some of those classifieds. You got to remove some stickiness from you occasionally. He's your guy.
Yeah, if you're not going all in on Fiddler, then this is your option because you don't get a monstructor in this one.
And he's half the price of Fiddler, just about,
like almost a third when you take the expensive one.
Exactly. Solid order in the back line and able to do what he needs to do if you need him. Odalisks are another QK staple. They were the like face of QK kind of thing, in that this was something unique to the Qapu Khalqi.
So many profiles.
There only are 5
profiles.
Yeah.
Half of them have 6th sense, and the other half, the extra 5, are the exact same but have 360 visors.
Yeah, it's 2 flavors basically.
This is a unit that I do not understand at all.
They're kind of like cheer killers are in nomads. They're this weirdly light but no wound in cap, CC but not good CC skill, because they're supposed to have this like pheromone stuff that they've learned how to use, that they've kind of bought from or developed off the Toha's pheromone technology, and it gives them a flat CC attack -9. They're all armed with pair close combat weapons and multi pistols. So more importantly, they can use multi pistols in close combat and have DA, right, if they want to. The 6th Sense or 360 visor kind of just, they imitate each other. In the 6th Sense one, you can't react 360, but if someone shoots you from behind, you can fight back. The 360 visor just lets you see all around at the same point cost. Honestly, I'd probably take the 6th Sense because it protects you from surprise attack. Right, protects you from mind dodge penalties. Like there's a bunch of things the 6th Sense does over the 360 visor.
See, it's funny. I actually go the other way, and I think the 360 visor, because you're gonna, like, if you're gonna bring odalisks, I feel like you're gonna bring a big link of them. Like they're gonna be the thing that you bring, and because the Hafsas are a point cost discount on these guys, you're gonna get 6th Sense anyway. And so
that's a good point. Yeah,
you might as well get the 360.
4 or 5 of them. Yeah,
have some Hafsas pretending to be, insert whatever you want.
Oh my god, can the Hafsas join these guys? Oh my god,
of course, Hafsas join everybody.
Like, because it's the QK fire team, so it's odalisks or sec bands, and then you sprinkle in Hafsas.
Right.
So so basically, you take 2 bodies for 30 points that are Hafsas, and then you could have 3 other guys mix and match from whatever these profiles you like with 360. Yeah, I see that.
The real issue,
Spitfire.
None of these are specialists. No,
you can make the Hafsa specialists, I guess.
Yeah,
like the
they're dragging
the one that did it. They're dragging like the FO. They're dragging the FO Hafsa. Yeah,
exactly. But that's where I go. I think the 360 visor is pretty interesting. This is a surprisingly effective defensive link. With no wounding cap and shock immune, they don't go down right away. They have 360 visors, so you can scatter them around your deployment. And CC attack -9 is no joke against things like ninjas and stuff like that, who, while they have really good CCs, you're playing basically evens and rolling dice when they get into melee with each other.
And they have, like, I feel like they're actually not DZ. I agree with you. I think they're like an interesting like defensive team, but they feel almost like a team that moves into the midfield and then just like fights in every direction.
Right. Yeah.
You know, like, because they want to fight at a short range, but none of their guns are good at fighting over 16. They have a rifle, a Spitfire.
I guess one cool thing that they have that you don't see anymore is flash pulse +1 burst.
Sure. Yeah, they could get an active turn burst 3 flash
Whip
pulse.
20. No, you don't get the extra burst for the link because that's gone.
Oh, because
there are no more.
Yes, it's just 2. Yeah, it bursts 2 flash balls on whip 20.
Right? That's no joke.
Yeah,
up to 24. Like,
yeah.
This used to be my Gulam tactic, and now it's 22 points, and you can have a 360 like you could literally have this person, like you said, move up a bit, and you have one of these odalisks standing in the middle of the board, and anyone who moves anywhere that they can see gets double flash pulsed.
Wait, why is it 20? Whip 20?
Because it's +3. Oh, sir.
It's not whip 20. It's because you don't get the BS
get the extra
stack.
BS anymore. Ah, lame. Never mind. It's all garbage. I take it back. Throw it out back.
17s. It's 2 dice on 17s.
You used to get the +3.
Attack. Yeah, it's because using your whip, it doesn't get bonuses to BS.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, sure.
I take it back. It's still not terrible, but now just give them a Spitfire.
I think the problem that you're alluding to with these guys is you need to have like a really specific opponent and job for them. Like, I feel like they could give a real bad day to JSA, and they could give a really bad day to Shazvasti by like getting first turn and jamming the midfield with these guys. You've got a bunch of like problems now for like advancing Tagas and anybody who's in camo, you know, like all these guys have nanopulsers, so they can intuitive attack. Like there's a bunch of like, I don't know, like just problems is the best term I can come up with. But then you've invested like almost 100 points probably into a fire team that's situationally good, and if they ever get exposed, they're just gonna get picked off from 17 inches away by any gunfighter who's competent that can just walk along and be like, cool, so you see every direction. No, let's see this. Just start shooting them.
Opinion on why you're never going to bring these is because the odalisks got one new model sculpt and the rest are like old as sin model sculpts.
15 years old.
And then the only other one that exists from the previous starter set that's a pretty good sculpt is also a Spitfire. The two sculpts you have are Spitfires.
Spitfire
or you're
and
buying
Spitfire.
the ones that look wildly different than everything else that is
Right.
being made now. If these guys got a new box set, I would try and make it work. Like, I'd be like, I'm gonna bring these guys until I can figure out, like, is it a deployment zone thing where you counter, like, Van Zant can never come in now because we just kill him the moment he shows up. Like, I don't care if you have dogged, you just get shot down by my 360 visors. And you're a ninja. Oh, whatever. Oh, it's a Fide. I discover you. Whip.
They're too expensive to play them like Raven Eyes. You know what I mean? Like, I see that argument, like playing like a Raven Eye, using to like point defend like the rear. They're like 20 plus points. They're not disposable the way that the Raven Eye is.
They do have the 2 wounds, the pseudo 2 wounds, which I think is valuable, especially in a faction that can have Rouhani fix them when they're in that no wound incap state, so you can go back to like full fighting capacity. Especially, I guess my perspective is there's a lot of Harrises in this faction that can reach out and kill people, and if you're going to spend your 5-man team and you're not going to bring a Ghulam defense, because Ghulams, as fun and great as they are, they do just get murdered when those sneaky guys come in from the side or from behind. Odalisks aren't going to just disappear. Like, they're a significant speed bump.
Yeah, and nanopulsers keep them safe at range. Yeah, boarding shotguns.
Even the multi-pistols if things get tight.
Like, sure, yeah. DA multi-pistols, no joke.
Double tap DA multi-place pistol with BS12, because they got the 12 for some reason. And then armor 2. So armor 5 in cover with no wound in cap, shock immune, double tapping a DA pistol at you. It's pretty cool.
I feel and like, it's funny because it's funny because this is the type of, I don't want to say it's a bad profile, but this is the type of like non-linear sort of confusing profile that you like to try to make work. So they're interesting and they're weird, and they're kind of, I think what they are is they're a key feature of this particular sectorial. And you're right, they haven't had a model update in a long time. They're kind of forgotten about, and I bet when they get a model update, this whole profile is going to change, and we'll have to come back and talk about it again.
Just give them both 366 cents.
Sure,
I'm okay with that. That'd be cool.
I think what'll end up having is the whole weapon loadout will no longer be based on 15-year-old models, and we'll just see a whole new like profile.
Yep, that'd be great. But here we are, and so that's my thoughts on Odalisks. Warcourse, Wild Bill. We have talked about him last time, and we talked about him also in O12. His big thing here is that he once again joins Janissaries, though not as a Janissary.
And Caplans. Yep, but not as a Caplan. He just tags along. He's just Wild Bill. If you gave him a single keyword, he might be really cool. I love him. I think he's super cool, like as a model and like concept. I'd stick him with the Odalisks because he's got those multi-pistols. I think he'd be badass if you fight with the Odalisks. He'd be like a cool short range hitting piece you could stick in there.
But he can't join.
He has, I know, but I'm just saying, like, if he was in there, he'd have some legs in this faction. He's sitting with people that don't want to take him with them.
Sure, you can. You just make a Hafsa look like Wild Bill.
That's true. Here's all my Wild Bills. Just buy 5 Wild Bills and then join every link.
What could go wrong?
And that's it for light infantry.
And light infantry is I think between them and medium, they're the vast majority of this faction.
Medium is where it gets really you're making a decision here.
Yeah,
because these are the 4. So
5 unique profiles.
My perspective of Qapu Khalqi is there are 5 links in Qapu Khalqi. There's the Odalisk one, which is the weird one that I can never justify, and then the other 4, which are the Janbazans, the Druze, the Kaplans, and the Sekbans. And I want to kind of compare them as we talk about each one, like going back and forth, because these guys are 2
mercenaries and 2 hack ones. And you do have a character model that goes with the Druze, so we should probably just incorporate him as Security Chief Arslan.
Arslan is definitely with the Druze. So notably, the Hawk ones gain Hafsas first off, whereas the Kaplans and the Kaplans and the Druze do not. So when you're talking about the Janbazan, you're talking about the Sekban. Both of them have access to Hafsas to cheapen up their 5-man link, whereas the Druze and the KTS do not. But everyone here has a gimmick. Like, they all have the one thing that they do that the other 3 don't. So starting with the Janbazans, because they're first, their big gimmick is multi-spectre visor level 2 and regeneration Fizz 13.
Which is better than their basic Fizz of 11, which I think is interesting. They have a better Fizz to regenerate than their actual Fizz, which is neat.
Yeah. And they're shock immune, so they will almost always get that opportunity. And Phys 13 regeneration is better than most factions' doctors. Like
they die less from regenerating than what should we call trauma docs do, killing their own patients in Pano.
Yeah. Now these guys, they have all of the weapons that you'd expect. The one thing that they have that is a deviation from the rest of the Haqqislam stuff is an AP sniper rifle that also has shock. So you can have an AP shock sniper rifle with MSV2, shock immune, regeneration 13 with BS. They all BS12, I believe, as well.
Yeah, BS12 arm 3 with 14.
These guys.
Yeah,
except for the sec bands, they're better. Armor 3 though, BS12 in cover, 5-man team backed up by 2 Hafsas. That's a BS15 to start MSV guy.
This is your MSV HMG profile too. This is your big HMG guy.
Yeah, this is your second biggest HMG guy.
I mean,
just one.
So
we're coming to him.
If you're taking a 5-man team, if you're taking a 5-man team, this is your HMG, right? This is your and it's also MSV, which means you're talking about like as high as stacked mods can go. This guy's going to do it, except for marksmanship, right? He will ignore all the mimetisms. He'll ignore the low vis zones.
He won't be surprised.
No,
he will. He has a good enough whip, and teamed up with a squad, he's going to be able to identify enemies without any trouble. Jambazans are a solid group, and they have every kind of profile you're going to need. You've got your hacker, you've got your doctor. They have a shock marksman, which I think is my favorite profile out of the group.
He's a cool sidebar. Like he's a really cool. If you don't want to risk, like if you're advancing, you don't want to risk your HMG. You put him on point.
Yeah, because they don't have Spitfires. They only go sniper HMG and then down to rifles, with the shock marksman kind of being the middle ground.
I think I do HMG, doctor, and the shock marksman rifle with 2 Hafsas as my core team. That feels like my mix if I was going to take these guys. And you're looking at sub. What are you looking at? 60.
You're looking at about
92,
give or take.
92 plus 30, so 122 points for that link. It's a 5-man pure fire team.
Yeah. I might bring if I have the Swick to spare, I'll bring the sniper to tag team with the HMG, because then they can sit at the back at the beginning with basically impunity.
Sure, you don't really need the doctor because you have regenerate,
right?
Yeah,
and
but then
also,
you can't get him back at the active turn either. Like, I guess my point is you want to bring him back right away if he didn't die.
It's true. And I mean, you do have, this is only their first link, right? And it's under 150 points. So the other half of your army is still available, and doctors are, and I mean, hey, bring Rouhani. He's a whip 18 doctor who can just hang out near them.
Yeah, him by himself actually with some Nazmats is not a terrible idea in this faction.
Exactly. So yeah, that's their claim to fame. Jumping to the bottom of the medium infantry to the sec band, which are the other Haqqislam specific one. These guys have really cool models. They're a bit dated, but they're cool models with they have these cylinders on their back. They look like they have screws going into them.
Yeah, they're it's supposed to be I think it's their their void suits, because they're supposed to be 0G guys.
And they do have 0G. They all have 360 visors built in. They all have NCO built in. Which is great because you have no fighting lieutenants other than maybe Arslan, who we'll get to, but you're not bringing both of them together anyway. Their big claim to fame is +1 burst chain colts. And having a 360 visor. I don't know. These are also, I've played these guys a bunch of times because I have a bunch of sec bands, and they're pretty cool. They're a much better Harris than they are a 5-man team.
Yeah, the chain colts make them a cool Harris for sure.
Because 360 visor on everybody with multiple shot chain colts and
triple
access
tapping,
to a heavy,
triple tapping axe, triple tapping active turn chain colts,
and also having access to that heavy rocket launcher for dirt cheap. He's 21 points. He's the same cost as Rouhani. But he's triple tapping rockets at BS13, and he's AROing double tap rockets in any direction as needed. And I think that's their jam. They can also have the Hafsas in there, but these guys, that rocket profile is 21 points. Yeah, he's a lot of Swick, but it's cheap. They're dirt cheap. And they can sit in the middle of anywhere.
and fight in every direction. So they're a cool, like, one of the coolest things about them is you can break that fire team early on too and just throw them all in suppression, just have them shoot bullets literally everywhere if you're taking the AP rifle with the Spitfire.
Generic specialist operative for 24 points. He's arm 3, BTS 3, shooting in every direction with BS 13.
And very often super jumping in this ITS too because of 0G.
Yeah. And you could bring just the 3 of those if you wanted for 72 points, and they can do anything. They can fight anybody. They've got AP rifles. They have a decent BS. They have a decent armor, and they can complete most scenarios because of specialist operative. And whip 14 means they're pretty good at it too. And NCO, so your lieutenant can be pushing that link at the start.
Yeah, you could go heavy rocket, AP rifle, and just like super jump up the board, and then just throw 2 of them on suppression, or even
69 points. Yeah,
legit.
That's their thing. They can do that.
They're good Harris option.
Yeah, and then the next group you have is the Kaplans. Kaplans are also able to duo Harris core up to the AVA of 5. They can have wild bill join.
They have a cool stat line, man. BS 12.
I love these
arm
guys.
2
These
BTS 6.
Yeah.
BTS 6 is legit. Mimetism -3, immune shock, courage.
Yeah. So courage is great. Combi rifles, which are like an abnormality in the Haqqislam world. They're not great, they're not bad, but they also all have like their base profile is combi rifle adhesive launcher D charges. So they can open up the door to doing specialist missions right off the get-go. And then their secondary profile has blitzens as their offhand, which EM BTS, like EM ammo, is already terrifying. They're disposable, but this guy's going to jump up and double tap you with a blitzen. That's, for some people, that's worse than the Panzerfaust.
Yeah, disposable blitzen. It's a EM Panzerfaust is like crazy for 23 points on a Mimetism guy
who's BS 12 and can be in a 5-man team. They can't have Hafsas, which is the hardest point for them. So they're creeping into 150 points to bring these guys. Like, that is the reality. If you want to go all the way and bring 5, half your army is going to be those 5 guys.
You're taking the 23-point base ones and heavy rocket. You're probably going to stay under 125. I don't think you get to 150, but you're right. They're going to be expensive.
I mean, if you absolutely brought the 23s, you're sitting at 115. Bring the heavy rocket. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, they have a doctor. You'll never bring that doctor. This is the engineer, I think, that is.
He's 27 points. Yeah, but he's almost twice as many points.
To the Niger. But I mean, this is where you've decided you want to play Kaplans. And they're pretty cool and have this, like, they also can just all have adhesive launchers and decharges.
Yep.
Sometimes you just shoot adhesive launchers in every direction.
Like, BTS 6 is crazy. Like, that's a
lethal army. Here we go.
Yeah.
This was actually way back when I played trying to play non-lethal. Khalqi was the way to do it. And Kaplans were a key member of the let's try and not kill anybody brigade.
Around the end of N3, when you were trying to get all of your Halo 3 skulls and you're trying to play the non-lethal challenge.
Yep.
I haven't thought about Halo skulls in decades. But I didn't even know the Blitzen existed.
Yeah, nobody does. There's a few in Toha. It's kind of like the not the Emirat. What was the one we were talking about last time out? The like point and clicky E-weapon, E-Mauler.
It's like I was also thinking of the Contender. That comes to mind.
Yeah, the E-Mauler is basically a contender for EM. These are basically, like you said, these are basically Panzerfaust.
The Blitzen. The Blitzen is like, oh no, sorry, the other one's the short range one. The Contender is the short range DA one. Yeah. I'm mixing them all up now. All of these obscure weapons that rarely ever get fired. Why would I disable you when I could just kill you?
This is what you shoot at the Magariva guard.
Yeah, it is.
Oh yeah, because it doesn't like being inside 16. There's that sweet spot that's outside the 11 inches of its flamethrowers and inside the 16 of its HMG, where the Magariva guard is vulnerable. That is his.
The hard part is the Blitzen wants to shoot outside that 16.
I know.
Yeah, but the other thing too is that he also can go after your Hectors and your Achilles, who all have the good stat line, but bad outside of 24. And all of a sudden you're just like, I just double tap you with a Blitzen. Make all your
Mhm.
BTS saves.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
it's
you're
also
minus
EM.
you're minus whatever the range band, mimetism, and cover is going to be too. You can hunt those guys with that thing. The Blitzen's
Yep.
no joke.
Yeah, it is a unique kind of weapon in this group because they don't have access to an HMG. They go snipers, rockets, and Spitfires, and so the fact that half of the profiles have Blitzens, I think, is like clearly intentional.
Mhm.
Look
They're
at me,
disposable,
take me.
but
Well, and then you go to the Druze, and it's all chain colts.
hey, I heard that from other chain cult group. Druze have an EM grenade launcher. That is it. Like,
Well,
that's the
also they're all
craziest thing
combi
to me.
rifles too. They have combi rifles, and they're all equipped with X visors and +1 damage. And
Yeah.
X visors on combi rifles means you shoot at 0s to 32.
That's
Let me
pretty
tell
good.
you about X-Fire +1 damage EM grenade launcher.
Yeah, spec firing to the moon.
Yeah, that in my opinion is the absolute claim to fame. They can shoot up to 32 without any additional negatives on their grenade launcher. You can be a 5-man team. You're BS15, so you can
All their
EM
hackers
grenades.
are pitchers too. Every single one of their hackers comes with pitchers.
That's nice. That's really
You-
nice.
You can spec fire 32 inches on 9s with this 5-man team. That's in from your deployment into their deployment. Turn 1 in a Qapu calculus that could be littered with garbage little Ghulams and Hafsas who are reducing the costs. And then
they're not that expensive either. They're only in the mid to high 20s for these guys usually.
Yeah, they're competing, like I said, for cost with the other 3 rather medium infantry links that make up the majority of this faction, in my opinion.
And if you're gonna play Druze, you should probably just play Druze. You can play the Druze Tactical Corps like as an N2A army too, and get even more options.
I actually wonder how this like I don't know the Druze as a standalone faction very well. So I don't want to speak too much about it, and we'll go over it and I'll read into it at some point. But I almost feel like these guys still have a home here.
For sure.
If only because of things like the Bashi Bazook and the Yuan who we're going to get to, which I know the Druze have access to them as well. But the thing the Druze don't have access to is goddamn Azra'il. We'll get to him. He's near the end, but
worth pointing to, these guys have the ultimate bear point defense too, because they're all armed with viral pistols, the entire group.
Yeah.
So go after them with bears, and the whole team's just going to start double tapping if you're in a fire team, viral pistols at them, and just melt people.
Yep. And I just can't get over the EM grenade launcher. I think it's wild on an X visor with a 5-man team.
Yeah.
I'll spend my first turn just thudding grenades into your deployment zone. Sure, why not? 50-50, every one of these goes off.
That, I guess that includes with the pitcher, right?
It also includes the +1 damage too, so that EM grenade launcher's damage goes up.
It's a heavy grenade launcher, and those don't exist anymore.
So EM grenade launcher is a damage 14 EM BTS speculative attack non-lethal. So up to 32, it's 0 range mod to 32.
Yeah. Hope you didn't bring a tag or a heavy weapons team.
Hope you didn't bring infantry who are not veteran. Isolated. Like, let me cripple your order pool off the bat. Oh, your lieutenant got clipped? Guess you're in loss of lieutenant now. Sorry. Oh, you brought the avatar? Oh, I can't see anyway. Bunk, bunk, bunk. Yeah, I think that is... These guys are great. I think that the Jambazan are the other side of the coin for them, because they don't have any kind of MSV.
Mm-hmm.
So they're doing like sneaky stuff, like shooting pitchers and hacking you, or in all fairness, setting up a different hacker in this faction, because the Haqqislam hackers are a little bit like, their killer hacker to come with the pitcher is 8 points more than Layla, who has the better whip. And so like, I'd feel like you'd have both.
Well, that's why I told you when I made my 2 teams before this all started, I was like, I made one that was leaning into the heavy infantry guy, and then I made one that was just nothing but mercenaries and yans.
Yeah.
And I think it works. I like that list a lot.
I think it's overlooked that these guys are pitchers, but it's like, okay, wait. So pitchers, do you get to shoot 2 at a time if you're in a link?
Sure.
Or is it a tactical weapon? No. So okay, so you can't shoot both. And then with X visor, you ignore the -3. So you can shoot at 24 inches at a 0 mod, or a +3 mod rather, because of the link.
Yep.
That's pretty good. That's like that's really high odds of like 2 115s, just 24 inches up, and you can hack whatever you want.
And you can have a Camille sleeping in the backfield going, yeah, I have baggage. Sorry. Refill. Yeah. Yeah. No, they're
hit you with the baggage.
There's something.
I like that a lot, actually. That's like the surprise pitcher.
You know, I said the MSV thing and I forgot to look at Arslan, who is their guy. And he does have MSV1.
Yep.
Not MSV2, but MSV1's great.
It's definitely not bad.
I don't know if I would bring this guy as my lieutenant because I feel like he's got to be point man a bit too often because of the MSV needing to be used in that link. So just bring a garbage Ghulam to be lieutenant. Like those guys love it. They'll do that all day. But I think he's a solid inclusion. He's a little bit pricier for the 36, but he gets the no wounding cap. Doesn't have shock immune, but he does still have the veteran that they have. So they're shrugging off a lot of the negative side effects of being isolated and things like that. They don't go into retreat. They get to continue to function. 5-man team that is immune to retreat and is immune to being isolated is pretty slick. This does kind of go into, especially between these two, and why both of them seem to have more things going on than the Jambazan and the Sekban, is because both of them have been dragged out. Like Drew's has become its own faction. And who is it that's the Caplands? Is it the White Company? Somebody leans into
maybe the foreign. It might be the foreign company with the 18. Might have the Caplands. Caplands are like the good guy mercenaries. The Druze are the evil bad guy mercenaries. And Arslan is Nauf's evil clone.
He's his evil twin. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like those two have been put into other factions and have gotten kind of that makeover that the other parts of Qapu Khalqi haven't really gotten, other than through like, oh, Rama got something. Here's the new Ghulam profiles, I guess. Like that's my perspective. Like these guys need their update, but anyway,
I like the Druze a lot.
Yeah. But that's it for medium infantry. So lots to consider. Like I think you're only ever taking one of these groups. They're too expensive, and they all really want to be their 5-man team. Whether it's the Jambazans or the Sekbans doing it with Hafsas to discount them, or the Druze because that sweet EM grenade launcher and pitcher shenanigans, or the Caplands for the reason that they don't have anyone who can mix into there. But a mimetism 5-man link is great. And Blitzens. Heavy infantry, Janissaries. So we talked about Janissaries in the last episode. I think that the Janissaries have a much better home here than they did in Task Force.
Hard agree.
And the biggest thing is because of the fact that Hafsas can join them. The fact that Hafsas can pretend to be Janissaries dramatically decreases the cost of this link. And for a 41-point Janissary HMG tag teaming to 15-point Hafsas, giving you a BS14 5-tap Harris team for 71 points, it's great. It's completely solid. That guy can survive in the backfield. He's got that armor 4. He's got 2 wounds. There isn't really somebody else, with one exception, we'll get there, who can do that job the way he can. And so it really, to me, is like, this is the guy. This is their moment to shine, I should say.
Yep, agreed. I think that this is the moment where they can, because they can get to that full composition bonus without having to go 150 points sunk or 200 points sunk.
Yeah.
I think there's a place for them here for sure. Especially if you're taking an off team led by the other guy,
Mobile Brigada.
Oh yeah, Mobile Brigada. So you can have one of them. I mean, we'll just talk about them for a second. You get all the options.
First off, you can't link with anyone.
No,
just want to make that
he's just a dude.
Also here. Yeah.
There's an argument to take the missile launcher as an ARO piece. It's only 37 points. Stick it on a tower, and just fight with a Nazmat like crouching behind it, and just have it fight till it dies.
I'd have a Hafsa pretend to be a Mobile Regatta with a missile launcher.
So you can use the miniature.
Then I have a reason to use my Mobile Regatta missile launcher.
Fair enough.
Yeah, like that's kind of my perspective on these guys, because they're expensive. They're your Janissary price point, right?
Worst BS.
Why don't you just bring a Janissary? Yeah. I mean, they're better armor. but they lost half
where's
their
BTS?
BTS.
Yeah.
They gained shocking. Nope, never mind. They both have shocking. They gained courage, which is objectively better than religious.
Yeah.
Apparently we had wrong, or I had wrong rather.
Yeah, religious pass to fail, and then courage is just pass or fail.
Yeah. But you can't choose the fail. You have to roll the religion to fail.
Yeah, you gotta roll the religion.
Anyway, skimming over Mobrigadas, those will come up way later on when we get to Nomads. To the actual the shoulders with which I view all of Qapu Khalqi under, the new and improved Azra'il. Special deterrence group Azra'il is a absolute behemoth when it comes to killing people. BS13, so he's not exceptional BS.
He's got Brigada stats, actually. Having looked at them back to back, I think he has almost exactly the same stats as the Mo Brigada.
He actually has worse fizz, but gains whip.
Gains whip, yeah.
Yeah. But what he gains over a Mo Brigada is +1 damage on his BS, continuous damage on his BS, and then fizz dodge on 11s and shock immune. But he's armed with either an AP HMG or a +1 burst Fuhrbach. So he has a damage 16 AP flamethrower HMG.
He will just liquefy a tag.
And he's 40 points. He will liquefy anything that he shoots. If he wins the dice roll, and he does have problems because he doesn't have vision, he doesn't have any mod stacking of any kind, either positive or negative. He is going to just kill you because you're going to get hit by that, and you fail one roll, and you're going to go down the spiral, and it's AP. And the Fuhrbach, like, get tapped by the triple shot explosive damage 15 fiery damage Fuhrbach.
In my mind, the Fuhrbach is firing remember the Half-Life 2 crossbow that fired like molten rebar? That's what the Fuhrbach's firing.
It's the Fallout crossbow. 3 mini nuke launcher. Yeah, like that's what he's shooting those. He's thudding them off his.
It's the rail rifle shooting like depleted uranium rounds.
Yeah. It is a incredibly powerful gun, and the thing with him, you could bring a Harris of 3 Azra'ils if you wanted to be crazy. It is like 120 points or 132 if you brought all +1 burst Fuhrbachs, which you wouldn't. But you could. It's like, oh, one went down. Stand aside. I'll do the rest.
It is interesting.
He can link with the Rafik though, which is interesting because he can switch over and have the Rafik get him places. Because the Rafik FTO in this has a Red Fury.
Yep. And he also has marksmanship. Notably, the Rafiks are only AVA 1 in this faction, as opposed to, which is something worth pointing out when we'll just cover that right now.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Compared to the task force, but he can link with them. But he also he can just link with all the wild cards. Yeah. And here's where you're going to get your Hafsas again. They show up. Odalisks and Sekban show up, which are interesting bodyguards for this guy because they both can have access to 360 visors off the bat. And the Sekban having NCO built in means you could have a Sekban FTO Azra'il 1, 2, 3 and have NCO order to move, have TACAware order to move, and then the work begins on the Azra'il.
You welded some efficiency to him.
Yeah, and because he's never getting above 3, like they always Harris out, which is fine. He's still great. He's getting another shot on top of his already rapid fire guns.
Yeah, burst 4 Fuhrbach is ridiculous.
Yeah, it is. Burst 4 +1 damage burning.
Man. APDA continuous damage Fuhrbach.
Yeah. So the biggest thing I think with him is you're going to tag team him with, like I said, the whichever medium infantry. So you're probably not going to have taken Sekbans, but you might have because they're an interesting way of going about it. And same goes for Odalisks. But I think this brings them back as potential bodyguards for him.
I think the Sekban Doctor is a really big play for it because this guy's got enough meat on him to stick around in a fight. But having like a reliable doctor to follow him around, I think, is a huge deal. And he does have a cube.
Yeah, and he also
he doesn't have a cube. Sorry, he's hackable. He doesn't actually have a cube. Never mind. So that whip 17 doctor is a big deal.
And the other thing too is that he only has a heavy pistol at short range, whereas the Sekban Doctor's just boarding shotgun.
Yeah.
No, so like Azra has a cube.
Does he? What am I looking to see? Cube.
It's the very first. Like it's the blue people.
Oh, blue people's cube. There you go. Sorry. Yeah, you're right. He does have a cube.
Yeah, I forget the Janissaries don't have cubes.
Yeah, they don't believe in it.
But yeah, the Second Doctor, and then I think you go either a Hafsa if you want something that's really cheap, like maybe the Forward Observer, so that, well, I guess if the Doctor, you can already get the
Specialist.
I took it for the,
The
deployable
specialist?
repeater. I took it for the deployable repeater.
Yeah, I
So
was
so
gonna
my
say,
mine was like double. The one I took the Azra'il, I took 2 Harrises in my list, and it was one with the HBHMG, and it had the FO Hafsa, pretending to be somebody like a Janice, whoever, and then a Secband Doctor. And then the other one was the Fearbach one with the Red Fury FTO, because he needs that high dice defense guy to go with him, and another Secband Doctor. And that way you've got a repeater on both of them to keep them protected from hacking attacks.
yeah. And because you have access to things like Leela and regular just Ghulam hackers who are solid hackers, they're good. And the Drew's killer hacker. If you're bringing your 5-man team as your EM grenade launcher Drews, they have access to a killer hacker, so like they can shoot pitchers up to rescue the Azra'il if needed. Pretty neat, in my opinion.
I think the big thing with him, if I was just to give like a PSA on him though, is he needs to pick his fights. He really does. Like, he looks like his damage output is so absolutely insane that he looks like he's hyper dangerous. He isn't actually that hard to kill in the reactive turn, right? Because that Fearbach cannot suppress. The APHMG can, but the Fearbach cannot. And he's only arm 5. If he gets into a fight with a tag and he's in the reactive turn, he's probably going to die. He doesn't have a lot of tech, and his BS isn't that high, right? So he's a piece that wants to be doing the bullying, and he wants to pick the right targets, but he hates fighting against camo. He's meat basically for like a impersonation or a TO CC run. So I think building that team around the idea that those are his weaknesses is probably really important.
Yeah, makes sense to me. Well, yeah, that's the Azra'il. I think he's fantastic. He is an amazing model as well. Both of them, the Fearbach model and the HMG models, are solid.
Yeah, agreed.
And he has so much more going on, because I loved the Azra'il for a long time, because you used to be able to just double team him with Hafsas. It was just Hafsas in his group before it was wildcards and things like that. So he was really great cheap. And then for a while there, they were gone and you couldn't link him, and he had none of the BS attack. He didn't have the +1 burst. He had an APHMG, but he just had a normal Fearbach. Didn't have the continuous damage. And so it was like, and then the fellow from Task Force came out, the Alpha Sid. And the Alpha Sid was just a better version of him. Better raw stats, more equipment, better range bands, more guns. And now the Azra'il, I feel, has come back as the premier long range killer, who doesn't without any mods. It's the only thing he's got going for him. We're rather against him. He's also cheap. He's only 40 points for what you're getting, I should say. Yeah, so that's heavy infantry, not money. They have access to 2 tags. The Iguana is a borrowed mechanized troop from the Nomads faction, and I don't know if we mentioned this on camera or on the recording or not, that he fights to be the worst tag in the game, being effectively 2 wounds. Now,
yeah,
interesting,
2 structure.
I think the interesting thing is that his pilot also has 2 wounds.
Yeah, he transforms into a tack-aware heavy infantry guy,
which is something. So he's sort of a 4 wound tag, sort of.
Yep.
I don't know.
The only problem with him is, and here's the interesting thing, when he transforms, his cost is 0. So he doesn't provide any victory points into his zone.
What the?
Yeah.
And he's notably not a specialist.
Yeah.
So he can't do anything other than
just
fight to the death.
Fight to the death guy he transforms into with a cost of 0. So it's super weird, because when the Iguana itself dies, you lose everything that was holding that zone, and you just become this immune to shock 3/3 BS12 HMG guy that doesn't have a cost. So he doesn't help with any victory points. It's weird. Unless the escape system says that he maintains that cost, but I'm pretty sure. Yeah, that's just it.
Just lets him
that's
escape.
it. Just lets him escape.
Can it proof of smoke?
Oh no, it does says in the N4 FAQ, if the operator profile's on the game table, they are worth the victory points of their tag profile.
Yeah.
And in scenarios of the killing rule, the unit does not count as killed until the operator profile is also killed. There you go. They added it January of 2022.
That's it. That makes it the best tag of the game.
It's not. It's not. It's a tag. It's 65 points. I mean, it's neat. ECM guided -3, ECM hacker -3, or -6, -3 hacker. It's a tag. It's just, I don't know. The fact that it goes down so fast, I'm not super into for its point value. It is your only tag option though. It's worth noting in this.
Not. There is another.
Which one's that? Oh, sorry.
Scarface.
That's right, Scarface.
Yeah, you get Scarface and Cordelia, who are basically the same points, only the people that the excess person that you're adding on is an actual useful model.
And they're better BS, better armor.
It's actually worse BS as a tag, but
oh, that's right, but better BS. Yeah, that's right. You're right. Arguably a better gun because it has an AP heavy machine gun or an AP Spitfire +1 burst.
I actually like the Mark 12.
I don't know, man. A burst 5 AP Spitfire and a Panzerfaust. I'm into that.
Burst 4 Mark 12, burst 3 heavy rocket launcher.
Yeah, you're right. The heavy rocket's tasty.
Rockets are no joke. And
it's a damage 16 Mark 12 too, which is
Yeah.
cool. It's basically damage 16 HMG, but without HMG range.
But then you get access to the blast weapons on top of
burst
that,
through blast
which
weapon.
do have the HMG range. So you kind of like, you straddle both. Like you only have a dead zone at short range.
I forgot he berserks.
Yes.
CC 22 berserk. And Attack-aware.
25 berserk because it's berserk +3.
That's what I mean, but it's a starts at 22, right? So
he's probably the best melee tag.
No.
The Oyuroi has martial arts, right?
You have to start and the Gator's natural born warrior with an EM close combat weapon.
Oh, really?
There's a couple other tags that are pretty great. The Guij is actually martial arts 2. The Oyuroi, I think, is martial arts 2 as well. There's a few pretty
because I guess I'm
tags.
looking at his CC -3 built in and already having an above 20 CC. Because like I think the Oyuroi is only CC 20. Like,
so the thing with his special skills, what's cool about his special skills, it makes him immune to natural born warrior. Right, because he doesn't have a level of martial arts. His CC attack -3 means he's immune to that, and then
I take it all back. The Oyuroi is 23 base. Never mind. Back to the pile for you, buddy.
I mean, he's for 64 points. He's pretty great. 68 if you're taking that Mark 12. And then Cordelia, she's an engineer. She just follows him around.
Mimetism Whip 13 engineer.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty cool. Doing objectives, living their best life.
And you can buy her a Dasmat.
Yep. Has a combi rifle too, which is and D charges, but I think all engineers
and mimetism on an engineer's nice.
Yeah. I think these guys are cool. If you have the model, I would use them. But you're
gonna have a Shikush soon. You'll have the model.
That's true. Shikush is too little. This guy's size 7.
I just say stick him on the right size base, be fine. I'm pretty sure the Shikush is actually still bigger than the old Scarface model.
That's also probably true. At least Scarface is fast, 6'4". Like all tags, except for the Shikush.
That's right.
I think these guys are cool. I think the hard point for me would be for 85 points, I'm getting that Azra'il with Sec Ban with Hafsa.
True.
And it's like, oh, we can shoot and kill. I can shoot and kill too. Because he doesn't have MSV or anything like that. So I don't know. He's cool. If you want to play a tag, it's not bad, especially for what you're paying. Yeah, he's relatively cheap, and you're getting an engineer out of it.
Yeah, another. It's two regulars and Attack-aware.
Yeah.
And like a lot of loadouts. Like he flexes into 3 different loadouts. So I think he's just cool to own in this faction if you're playing QK, because he has 3 different like build options, and they're all like very different and useful and kind of cool.
Yeah, they fight at different range bands. Having access to Panzerfausts on the tag is pretty fun. Nice ARO response. I guess the hard part is they're on the 2 profiles that you're probably going to suppress. But I guess if someone gets you from out of that, you can suddenly switch to Panzerfaust and hope it works out.
Yeah, and if you creep up on a fire team, you just start bang bang booming into melee and being like, I berserk. Just start like crushing your way through like Kool-Aid Man.
Fizz 16 DA weapon is no joke.
No, especially when you're berserking for crits.
Especially then when it can't miss.
That's what I mean, right? When it just auto when you're just taking 2 16s, maybe 3 all the time.
Yeah. You're hitting it back, but he's got 3 wounds.
That's
Or
how we got
7.
Scarface.
Yeah. Yeah, other than that, we have a few profiles to cover.
The remotes is just AVA. You want to just quickly see if there's any AVA. You already noticed that the Fanus could have 3, but the Rafik only has 1.
Right, and that's it. The other ones are all. Oh, they do have 2 HMGs if they want.
They can take double Camille's. That's right.
Not Camille, no,
Shehabs.
Yeah. Which the thing that I think this list runs in, well, we'll get to it when we get to the summary, but we'll move on for there. The Al Hawaz are your special troops.
They're great.
They're an excellent model. Like, they're so like, if this was the baseline for MIM3 infiltrators, be completely content for every faction.
Yep. Any faction would love having this guy. The mine layer profile is amazing.
Yeah.
Like, you take the mine layer profiles, you infiltrate them to the left and right of the midfield, and you just shoot cross board. Like, you shoot across to the other side, like shooting like parachutists and stuff that come in.
Yep.
And they can mine lay.
Being able to lay mines means they can protect themselves and slow things down. They've got terrain total in the current season, which is relevant for if they have to move later on. Because I think there's a good case for the shotgun one too, because it's a hacker with decharges and infiltrate, which means a whole bunch of what are they called? The objective cards, classifieds go onto the table all of a sudden.
Yeah.
You can get you can instantly get your spotlight essentially for free at some point during your opponent's turn if this person is just sleeping prone on a rooftop. And sometimes it's worth a 26-point model to get it classified.
Mm-hmm.
And they have to stop and deal with you now because maybe they're a heavy infantry or something like that, and they don't want to keep getting tagged by him. And it's with 14, which means you're probably going to land most of those.
Yeah, there's no bad profiles here. They're all 3 of them really good.
They're an excellent infiltrating guy. And then the last profile in Qapu Khalqi is the mighty Yuan.
Love them.
There are many Yuan models of all variants. You have classic girl with sword rested across the base, to parachuting man with sword up in the air, to fat
noodle man
eating noodles.
Yeah.
There's everything you could want.
They all have smoke. There's a chain rifle, boarding shotgun, a rifle profile, and then the chain rifle profiles get AP or DA.
Yeah. I don't know why you would take the AP. Like, my brain just says DA is like 2 dice is better than AP.
Agreed.
Every time.
Yeah, agreed.
So
they all get booty. So sometimes they have machine guns.
Sometimes they have MIM6.
Sometimes they have MIM6. Yeah.
Wait. How does this work if they parachute?
You roll when they deploy.
Yeah, they walk on the side. And
you have no idea.
What do I have?
Roll, that's right. It's like, you don't know. They don't know. They reach in their pockets, and sometimes it's go gadget Spitfire. Sometimes it's go gadget motorcycle. Like, it can be a lot. They just rip and go as soon as they arrive, and it's a surprise for everybody.
So AVA3 means I take 3 of them.
I would almost always take 3 of them. Yeah.
Yeah, for 24 points, and they could be literal anythings when they show up. It's great. They can toss smoke, this is where I lean into the Jambazans a bit harder here, is because they have a 5-man MSV2 option, and you have dirt cheap disposable smoke people. This is pretty good. Like, that 1-2 punch, like, you can hit
these
him
guys
with
a Beast Hunter FTO, and like, you've got a great like midfield just chaos.
Yeah, and then you can tag team with Bashies. Like, if you wanted to go with more shenanigans of people walking in, like, Bashi Bazooks can come back with their hollow masks and hollow projectors and walk in from the side, pretending to be Yuans. Like,
and you start with that Al mine layer, and just land mines and being sniper rifles.
And there's just stuff all over the place, fighting at all kinds of range bands. And then in the back of it, you have your Azra'il squatting with his team, and they're just deleting things. So yeah, I that is it. I mean, I think Yuans are an auto include.
Yeah, me too.
Maybe you don't necessarily bring 3. Maybe you've maxed out a little bit, but you're never gonna not take one. Yeah. For as cheap as they are, and for how much potential there is, even if they rolled nothing on booty, and they walked on and just went, I toss a smoke grenade, I whip 13 an intuitive chain rifle, and then they killed me, but it was worth it.
Yeah. As a faction, the real big difference I think between these guys and these guys have slightly less access to those really powerful gunfighting pieces. The way that you had them in Rama, they lean more into the medium infantry and like certain heavy infantry pieces, but they have way more access to like a start at turn or start a game midfield presence and like turn one arriving in the midfield. So you have this kind of cloud of disruption in advance of your own battle line and even protecting your own deployment zone. And then all the misdirection stuff that the Hafsas bring into it as well, that really like I love that part of QK where you have equal access, kind of like a balanced access to like really good fighting pieces and fire teams, and then lots of these like fun disruptive pieces in the midfield.
I think the other thing that these guys do to a surprising degree is play the remote game. You can bring the double TR bot HMGs with a double Evo, like 2 hacking Camille's to buff both of them, 3 Fanus and the missile launcher bot for 115 points. And it's 8 orders.
It's
so
really easy to get to 15
you have like
in this game.
200 points of what do you feel like this would be, you could bring all of this and then bring a Janissary link and then also bring random stuff to throw at your opponent, and you have such a huge basis of like, you have a hacking net coming out of your Fanus remotes as needed, you have 2 marksmanship HMGs that you can set up right away. Solid like hack or like robot game, purely because in my opinion they have the 2nd HMG and the 3rd Fanus remote. Just 7-point regular order, who's also got a flash pulse with 13 and fast as 6/6.
Yeah, and spreads out Leela's hacking net, gives you more access to an Al Hawa hacker getting those spotlights off if you want them to. You can even take a missile bot too if you want to do like a missile game. I do think that like we bagged on Qapu a little bit last game, but I think it's less to do with the potential of the army. I think they have a really high ceiling, but I think they have a slightly higher barrier to entry and understanding for like a newer player, because they do rely on kind of a riot of non-linear combos.
Yeah, you also have to be prepared because a lot of your guys are going to die. Like, you're going to be sending in Bashis and Yuan-Yuans, and like Hafsas are going to get caught out and things like that, and they're just going to get murked by other players' models. Like you're losing dudes. You're trading.
Same issue
pieces.
of your reactive turn is not as powerful as your active turn.
Yeah, which is, in all fairness, I think kind of a running theme, and I do think the double HMG TR bot offsets that, because the others,
that's not a hack thing though. Anybody can take double HMGs, is like the problem is like you
this
pay
is
more
the only
to
group in Haqqislam who gets 2 of these.
True.
Is what I mean. Like, out of all of the Haqqislam like subsects, this is the only one that's going to get 2 of those TR bots. The other ones are not. They're only ever getting 1.
Yeah, and you have enough cheap bubble wrap to put near them too that it's hard to sneak up on them. They kind of have to deal with them at range.
Yeah, those Al Hawas can protect them. Actually, what am I talking about? My good friend Vanilla. That's a different story, I suppose.
That's when we put it all together at the end. I mean, it's about like, I think that the difference with QK is you're talking about being able to take an almost infinite amount of these space pirates. Like, you get so many Yan-Yans and Al Hawas and stuff like that. Whereas I think in core Haqqislam, you have way less access to them. You actually can't take Yan-Yans at all.
Is a war zone of profiles fighting
each other. And then
Al
Hawas, you only get 1 as opposed to getting 3. Right? You get other things like Hunzicuts and stuff like that are great, but like, and we'll get there in the end, like I said, but you lean really hard into that space pirate stuff, and those space pirates are great. 3 Al Hawas is no joke. They're fantastic fighting pieces.
AVA Total Daylami is a conversation we will get to. that is also a thing.
Yes. Sometimes if you are the best in show and you can take an unlimited amount, there is also that.
Yeah, which is where, like, when we get to, because like we're going over most of the profiles now. We're gonna, the next, like, I guess to summarize this faction, yeah, they're not as garbage as I was implying that they were, and I think I've even posted jokes on the Discord about it.
Well, you only speak in hyperbole. Like, that's one thing that we need to just clarify again. Owen doesn't ever speak not in hyperbole.
Yeah, everything is
110% of the time,
and the worst of.
Right, yeah. Everything is a million billion times worse than he suspected.
Dog water, or the best thing in the game, clearly OP.
There's no middle ground with that one.
Yeah, I do really, I like that they're, the only thing I think the real thing that bothers me so much about this faction is I really like the idea of odalisks.
They have a couple dead profiles. Like they do have a couple like dump profiles, like the Corvus Belli and
the Mobile Brigada, the one Brigada.
They just don't make like they make thematic sense. You struggle to find like a legitimate like objective place for them in an army list, and I think that's where it when you look at stuff, you're like, it needs to all have like, it needs to all interlock and have like a reason for me to take it at some point, even if it's not optimal in the thing I like taking. I could see the reason to take, like we kind of talked ourselves into odalisks over the course of this thing, and it wasn't,
but that is like, that wasn't a,
I didn't write any list with obelisks in them.
Yeah,
yeah. I didn't actually write any list with them
either. And I'm gonna try to. Right now, I'm gonna try and see if I could set something up. But like, yeah, it's that there's a couple of profiles that are sort of like the unique thing about this sectorial that it's just not there yet. It just doesn't click. Like, it's cool that you get a Mobile Brigada. Can I tag him in with like some Janissaries? Can I have a mixed link of Mobile Brigadas and Janissaries? Like that'd be cool. Even if it's expensive, at least it's something. Or
it's
like,
just like slightly off from greatness. You know what I mean? For like versatility.
Can we have the Aguaseals go to school and we'll teach them how to be doctors, or give them +1 whip when they're with us? Like, I don't know, something to put them in line with the others, or bring like unique The problem is the freaking Ghulam's got a grenade launcher. Before then, the cool thing was that the Aguaseals had access to a grenade launcher, but they gave a Ghulam both grenade launchers, and he's the same cost.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, he's definitely 1 point more, but yeah. So that's my thing with Qapu Khalqi.
Well, I'll go over my list real fast while you try and make an odalist list. I made two because I liked to make two. I made two kind of really distinct ones. I made the Super Mercenary Friends list, which was a core fire team of Druze. So it was the Killer Hacker with the pitcher, a HMG Chain Colt, a EM grenade launcher, because I was already there with Owen, the Panzerfaust basic guy, and then Arslan as the lieutenant. Then a Kaplan Harris team with the Engineer Deactivator, a Kaplan heavy rocket launcher, and then Rouhani as like a defensive, and then 2 Al-Hawa mine layers with sniper rifles in the group 1, and then it was a Rafik remote in group 2 and 3 Fanus remotes. And that was it, just to spread out that love. 14 orders, only 6-7 actual Haqqislam models, and mostly just space pirates. I could probably trade 2 of the Fanuses for some like Warbandy stuff if I wanted to, or the Rafik maybe, but I like that it's all regular orders too. And then the second one is more of a traditional Qapu Khalqi list. It's an Azra'il APHMG with the Hafsa FO, pretending to be whoever you feel like, insert thing, and a Sec Band Doctor. And that's kind of like the defensive mid to like just over the deployment line guys. And then the Azra'il Fearbach with the Rafik FTO and the Sec Band Doctor as like the hunting pieces. And then Al-Hawa Hacker, Al-Hawa Mine Layer, and Leela to go blow up some heads. And then it's double Fanus, Yan, and a Beast Hunter FTO in the midfield with the Al-Hawa Mine Layers to blow everything up. And I think that's actually a solid QK list. Like I really, it doesn't lean into any of the visory stuff. You could probably ditch one of the 2 Azraels to take visors instead and take like a pure fire team. But I really like that list. I really like the double Azrael because I think there's something about the shock and awe of them that I feel like I want to make them work, and the models are so cool. I would do it just rule of cool, I think.
I have a list.
Hit me, Dan. What you got?
All right, I got a 5-man link of Druze with Arslan, with just not a lieutenant, and then I got the EM grenade launcher, heavy machine gun, and then the Hacker and Killer Hacker. Then we have a Harris, which is the Rafik remote, a Hafsa lieutenant, and oh wait, no, I can't do that because the Hafsa who can link isn't the lieutenant option. Is that correct? Or am I?
All the Hafsas can link. All the Hafsas can be lieutenants.
Yep, any Hafsa.
Okay,
any
so
Hafsa.
That works.
If all else fails, the wildcard Hafsa can do it.
Yeah, the wildcard Hafsa be like, I am here now. I am in charge.
So the Azra'il, Rafiq, FTO, and the Hafsa are Harris, and then the Hafsa can hide and pretend he's not a lieutenant, and then people will think Arslan is instead. And then I have a Ghulam Doctor with 2 Nazmats, just to keep people going, and then a Fanus remote. And then in my second group, I have 3 1/1s, a Beast Hunter, and a Fanus.
It's sick.
And so when people die, I can move the Fanus up. Otherwise, the second group is just a bunch of irregulars jumping on from the side of the board and throwing smoke and chain rifling everybody. The 300 points, 5 Swick, 15 orders.
I like it. I dig it.
I can see.
All right. Odalisks. We've got 5-man team to make up the Odalisks. 2 of them are Hafsas. So we have Spitfire, Boarding Shotgun, SMG, Nanopulsar, Flash Pulse +1 Burst as the 3 actual Odalisks. Then we have the Hafsa Heavy Rocket pretending to not be a blast weapon. And then the Hafsa Lieutenant running as that 5-man team. You also have the Azra'il, Furbach, Secband Doctor, and FO deployable repeater Hafsa as your Harris, all in one big pool. And then Leela, who's also in that group because, and a Yuan with his DA weapon. And in the second group, you have double Shihab remotes with HMGs, 2 more Yuans, and the Beast Hunter FTO Mine Layer.
Nice. I like that Beast Hunter a lot.
So like Beast Hunters planting mines and playing defense, the Yuans are showing up and having a few orders to spend because the Shihabs don't need to do anything. You get a ton of defense against all kinds of enemies that can come at you because of having double TR HMGs. And then you also get a 5-man bonus 360 visor, Spitfire, Boarding Shotgun, and Flash Pulse that can be a team of guns moving up into the middle of the board. And then you're on your active turn, the Azra'il or a Yuan just disassembles whatever they interact with.
Right.
Yeah, that's my thinking.
I'm into it.
And then you've got a good old-fashioned little Hafsa FO just putting down deployable repeaters as needed to get Leela to kill people.
That's right, to blow up the brains.
Yeah. Stand back, Azra'il. I'll deal with this.
That's right.
Deployable repeater. Leela, do it.
That's right. Call it Leela airstrikes. Corporal Lee Lemon.
Yep. Yeah. I think it's fun. I think the Druze one is really, really intense because of the fact that you get access to things like the infiltrating Al-Hawa.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if the Druze faction has stuff like that. I really should look, but I'm not gonna.
Save when we do in 2A. I think we should do some kind of project for like the next ITS season where like we each pick an N2A army and do them. You know what I mean? And like do it like playing playing Snotling teams in Blood Bowl. When you pick like the tier 3 team and try and figure out how to make it work.
I was the #1 rated Blood Bowl Snotling player in the world.
Stop telling me that. You've told me that 7 or 8 times now.
Okay.
It's a weird flex. It's
a good team. I love the team. Then they changed the edition, and then it was all went to garbage.
they're great. I love them. I think it's fouling the faction.
I don't even foul.
This is now a Blood Bowl podcast. Yeah. I think you'd have a lot of fun playing the Druze one. They get brawlers and stuff as well. Actually, they're a neat faction in N2A. Well, there we go. We went through. We got through QK. I think overall, I feel like we kind of talked ourselves into liking QK a little bit more than you did at the beginning of the last or the end of the last one there, Owen.
Yeah, probably. I mean, the nice thing too is that if all else fails, I can play basically any of these lists.
Yeah.
I don't have the Druze. That is the only thing that I lack, is I don't actually own the Druze models.
Right.
But yeah, no, the only downside is I'd have to buy more remotes to fill out that Fanus remote list.
Mm-hmm.
And the
you
new
would only be able
remotes
to use them in that.
The new remotes are so
not chickens.
Yeah, I love my chicken bots.
I had extra chickens. I gave them to Mike. Sorry. I would have given them to you if I know you want them. I thought you would want the new ones.
When have I ever wanted the new ones? Of anything. That's true.
Yeah, sure. Message my cousins and see if he's got them, because he'll probably just send them to you and be like, trade me for the new ones.
Let me tell you about how I just built my
unopened box
of third Wraith Lord, the old metal giant head Wraith Lord.
All right. Well, we're doing everything the hard way then.
When Owen messages me and he has like the first ever Age of Sigmar or back in fantasy, who's the big necromancer guy?
Oh, Nagash, the original Nagash. Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
using
Tiny Nagash?
The Rob Zombie Dragula Nagash. Yeah,
Yeah,
he's
the one
the
that's
old
like-
Gary Morley one.
The one that's 1.5 inches tall, opposed to the 7-inch tall model.
Yes, he is of a completely
All I'm
different
gonna
scale.
say is I put him on the same base as current Nagash. I'm playing him as regular.
And he's a
Nagash.
Games Workshop miniature, and he's on the right base size.
Yeah,
Fight me,
I've
T.O.
never seen Owen so excited about a miniature.
yeah. Come at me. I'm gonna use this.
Owen
He's-
wanted to do it with the. Didn't you want to do it with the Epic Mortarian too at one point? Where it was
I
just
was
like
trying to
it
get
was
my
like a
hands on an
1-inch
Epic
tall
Mortarian.
an Epic Mortarian, so you could take Mortarian on the right size base.
That was a harder
Ugh.
case because the Epic Mortarian was never actually in 40k. But
don't know.
this Nagash was in Warhammer Fantasy.
It's amazing to me that I love you as much as I do, and that I played the games with you as long as I have.
I will make a trip.
You're a
to
hard man
Ontario,
to love. I just want you to know that.
and I will bring Tiny Nagash and his giant skeletons,
Perfect.
because of course it's the modern skeletons who are actually as big as he is.
Yeah, as big as twice the size. Fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we did it. We made it through QK. Next up is Assassins, your boys. This is what you're probably taking to the satellite tourney, right?
Yeah. These guys are off the walls.
They do everything.
Yeah.
Again, not
Yeah.
a lot of difference in like the light infantry. I think it's just a few. You get
There's
Yaspir,
one.
you get Mutts, you get
there's
Avicenna,
one. Yeah. The mutts are the thing. And then
the
Daemon.
Nadir, who are amazing.
The
Nadir,
Bereaved, who's
Nadir,
also
like
amazing.
they're like Al Hawaz plus almost.
Yeah.
Next week you're gonna get an insight into why Owen really loves this sub faction and insight
You get
to who he is as a
Pandora.
person.
Oh my god, you get Pandora.
Yeah, wait till you see. We'll talk about this next
All
time.
right, I'll say it next week.
On watch as they get all of the thing.
Yeah. All right. All right. Well, thanks for leading this one, Owen, and thanks guys for listening in. And we'll see you next week for Assassins Baram. Night, guys.
Bye.
Bye.